Ian, eldest son, the baby, and I are at Lori's house in Michigan. As I rush back and forth between the kitchen and the bathroom to help with the breakfast dishes and get the kids ready for the day, a terrible image on the living room TV catches my eye. The television screen takes up half the wall, so the sight of billowing clouds of smoke streaming from one of the World Trade Center towers looks like a trailer for a new action film. I cry out when I realize it's not. Ian is standing next to me when the second plane hits. "This can't be real," I whisper. "How could this happen?" The announcer keeps talking about how clear and blue the skies were earlier in the morning. She uses phrases like possible accident, still unconfirmed, waiting for word. Ian shakes his head. I don't think it was an accident. We'd left Nova Scotia the week before, on a road trip we'd dubbed the 2001 Baby McKay World Tour. After stopping in Ontario to visit Ian's grandmother, we'd crossed the border en route to my parents' place. My sister's house had been the perfect overnight stop before traveling on to Indiana. Our minivan was loaded with all the things that 2 adults, an 8-year-old, and a 6-month-old would need for a month-long trip. Sippy cups, juice boxes, graham crackers, pretzels, baby food, pacifiers, a charged-up Game Boy, and dozens of assorted CDs, Raffi, The Muppets, Peter, Paul, and Mary. I'd also filled a backpack with notebooks, pens, and a small kit of recording gear on loan from the CBC. The interviews I'd previously taped with the women of my community had eventually become part of a radio documentary about the history of midwifery. After it had aired, the producer I'd worked with, Dick Miller, asked if I'd like to team up with him again. When I'd said it would have to wait until I got back from a family vacation, he'd asked, "Where are you headed?" "Ontario, Michigan, and Indiana to show off the baby." "Got any interesting plans for while you're there? Anything out of the ordinary?" He was always angling for a good story. "Actually, yes," I'd answered. "My mom wants me to have my blood drawn for a genetic test to see if I'm at risk for certain kinds of cancer." "Wow," he'd said. "Sounds heavy. Are you going to do it?" "I think so. Maybe." I hadn't forgotten my promise to my mother, but I wasn't sure if a vacation was the right time for me to get the test. "So you haven't made up your mind?" "Not yet." He says, scribbling on a pad of paper. "Tell me more about that." By the end of our conversation, I'd brought Dick up to speed on the ins and outs of Lynch syndrome, and he'd fetched me a canvas bag with a reporter's field kit. "Only do what feels comfortable," he'd said. "You don't have to document anything that feels too personal or invasive." "Thanks," I'd said as I got up to leave. "Maybe it'll help me make sense of things." Between truck stops, road construction delays, and countless rounds of 20 questions, I'd written a long list of questions of my own. Some were for my relatives who'd already had cancer. "Can you describe your symptoms? Did you think it was cancer from the start? What did your doctor think it was? What do you think of the genetic test? Do you think that being positive for the gene would have made any difference in your diagnosis and treatment? What do you say to those in the family who don't wish to be tested?" Others were for those who hadn't. "Are you aware of our family's history of cancer? Have you shared it with your doctor? How do you feel about the test? Do you worry when you have stomach pain or intestinal trouble? Are you scared of getting cancer?" The more questions I wrote for my family, the more I had for myself. Do I really want to know if I have the gene? If I test positive, how will I feel? Will I waste the rest of my life worrying about test results and prophylactic surgeries? How many associated cancers are there? Should I have a hysterectomy? Should I not have any more children? Everything about cancer terrified me. If it could get to my mom, it could surely get to me. September 11th, 2001.